Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society, bringing you our nightly update regarding the tropics and primarily Tropical Storm Erin. We have had some changes now that we've had a couple full suites of models run through with a named system. We've had a few adjustments here and there. I do want to point out, because I have had questions regarding this a little bit ago, this area here, as soon as we get the refresh rolling through, we'll try that one more time. Come on, there we go. This area here is a mid-level circulation. There is no surface feature associated with that. So it is not of any concern. And our zero area out here is going to usher off into the Gulf Coast of the United States here and move overland. We will have nothing to worry where that is concerned. Our little spot up here, our 10% area of interest in the outlook, we're still sitting there, spinning along, non-tropical in nature. And then, of course, last but not least, we have Tropical Storm Erin. And Henriette is out here, but you can't see it. So it's way out there. It's on the edge of the screen. So let's go ahead and get into the overall forecast. If we take a quick look at Erin over the last couple hours, as you could see, very sparse convective activity associated with it. Now that the sun has gone down, we'll be waiting to see if it can really flare up and fire up a good amount of thunderstorm activity during the overnight hours. Right now, it kind of looks like that the few shower and thunderstorms that are developing in and around the center, their outflow is kind of competing with one another. And then, of course, it has dry air that it is contending with, plus quite a bit of stable air clouds well off to the north. And that is starting to look like it is ingesting some of that drier air into the southern portions of the circulation, maybe not entraining it all the way into the core of the circulation, but it certainly looks like that some of that dry, stable air is starting to slide in on this southern side. So if we take a quick look, again, 10% chance of development there, nothing there. So we're going to dive right into Erin. As you can see, Erin is located out here into the open waters of the tropical Atlantic. And its forecast track now has the cone potentially getting into the areas here of Antigua and then getting up towards the British and potentially even the U.S. Virgin Islands. I know that a lot of this was under the cone this morning, including portions of Puerto Rico were included in the cone as of the 11 a.m. advisory, but the 5 p.m. advisory has been a slight shift back to the north. So that's good news. We do not want this to have any close proximity to the islands, although key messages. Number one, Erin could move close enough to the northern Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico over the weekend. Get rid of that. Over the weekend to produce some impacts on those islands. However, the magnitude of those impacts is still not known, and interest there should continue to monitor the progress of the storm. And key message number two, there is even greater uncertainty what impacts might occur in portions of the Greater Antilles, Bahamas, the east coast of the United States, and Bermuda next week. As we approach climatological peak of the hurricane season, this is an opportune time to ensure your preparedness plans are in place. If we take a look at the public advisory, we are currently located at 17.0 north, so we are losing latitude slowly, and 38.3 degrees west. It is located about 950 miles west of the Cabo Verde Islands and about 1,635 miles east of the northern Leeward Islands. Maximum sustained winds remain at 45 miles an hour. It is currently moving west or just slightly just a slight component of south, then due west at 265 degrees at 22 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure is 1,006 millibars. There are currently no coastal watches or warnings in effect, but if things continue to run the way that they are, interest in the northern Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico should monitor the progress of Erin. We could see watches issued for Antigua, especially. It seems to be kind of it has enough percentage as far as its wind speeds are concerned, and I'll show that here in just a moment. Hazards affecting land, at this point, none. Let's hope we can keep it that way. The earliest reasonable arrival time of expected tropical storm force winds could potentially be sometime on Friday, depending on where the track is. Notice how wide this is, so there is still a great amount of uncertainty as to where the wind field will stretch. Now, the most likely arrival time of winds will be potentially into the Saturday morning and Saturday timeline. But please, if you are in the islands, please make sure, especially the northern leewards, please make sure that you have any preparations if they are needed. Like we could, I'll show you some optimism here in just a moment. But if preparations are needed, please make sure that you have all your preparations completed before sundown on Friday. Okay, now taking a look at the tropical storm force wind speed probabilities. If we notice, we do have an area right here that is located within our 30 to 40% color range. That would denote definitely watches. So as we continue to go forward, if this cone does not shift in any way, shape, or form, I would anticipate to see some sort of tropical storm watches issued for the northern Leeward Islands. But we've still got time. We've still got a couple days to go. So it's going to ebb and flow. Right now, they're definitely in the percentages that would get them watches issued. But we'll have to see if that maintains as we continue to go forward with the modeling. Now, we have gotten to the point of the forecaster's discussion, and I've kind of flip-flopped a couple tabs here this evening just to make sure that we can kind of nail home exactly what is going on with Erin and a lot of the uncertainty that is kind of present at this time. So what I'm going to do here tonight is I'm going to read this discussion in its entirety. Paragraph number 1. Not much has changed with Erin's structure since this morning. A little bit of convection has formed over the low-level center, but the overall shower and thunderstorm activity remains limited. Due to the cyclone's fast motion, it is assumed that the maximum winds have not decreased, so the initial intensity is held at 40 knots. Paragraph number 2. A quick south of due west motion is expected to continue for the next 24 hours, with a strong low to mid-level ridging located to the north over the central and eastern Atlantic. Global models indicate that ridge is likely to weaken in a few days, which should cause Erin to begin moving west-northwestward in about 60 hours, with that motion continuing through day 5 or Sunday. In contrast to this morning, there were no major shifts in the latest track model simulations. The new NHC forecast has been placed along the southern part of the guidance envelope, lying closest to the HFIP Corrected Consensus, HCCA, and the Google DeepMind models. This results in the new NHC track forecast having no appreciable difference from this morning's forecast, with no additional shifting towards the northern Leeward Islands. Keep in mind that the NHC track forecast have an average area of 100 to 120 to 180 nautical miles at days 4 and 5, and future adjustments in the forecast are still possible. Paragraph number 3. It still may take Erin a little bit of time to produce more significant deep convection while it continues to move over marginally warm sea surface temperatures and through an atmosphere of only modest instability and moisture. Sea surface temperatures and instability begin to increase after about 24 hours, which should allow Erin to produce a more organized convection. Given that the cyclone already has a well defined low level structure, this could result in significant intensification towards the latter part of the forecast period, especially since the global models show an upper level anticyclone building over the storm. The NHC intensity forecast is near the lower end of the guidance during the first few days of the forecast, but then falls in line closer to the consensus aids in 3 to 5 days. In this scenario, Erin would still become a major hurricane in about 4 or 5 days. And as we could see with the with the National Hurricane Center's forecast intensification, we do see that here in 120 hours we are at 115, but at 96 hours we're at 110. So we're looking at least a strong category 2 within the next 72 hours. So we're getting there, folks. As it continues to move further and further westward, it is going to find a more thermodynamically, conducive environment. And what I mean by that is the sea surface temperatures are going to really start to increase as it continues to head west. So our latest spaghetti plots from all of our models, this is the 18Z. This came out a little after 2 p.m. Eastern Time this afternoon. And we'll note that all of our models and wind speeds are located here in this purple box. There are a lot that bring it up to at least 100 knots. Now, all this is in knots. This is not in miles an hour. 100 knots is the equivalent of a Category 3, 115 mile an hour hurricane. So anything that has our 100 knot markers, and you can see there's quite a bit of them. You've got one there, you've got your consensus, both halves, HMON, HWARF, NavGem, the National Hurricane Center. I got to figure out what that one is. That's a new one to me. And then the GFS is 98. So we're close enough. I mean, like we're definitely looking at the major hurricane, first major hurricane of the Atlantic Basin for this season. And the way that the models have kind of responded here this afternoon with the most recent track down here way from the National Hurricane Center, way along the southern part of the guidance. We are hopeful that it will spare any significant indirect impacts for the folks here in the northern leewards, the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. Now, that's not to say that the folks here in Bermuda really need to keep an eye on this. Very, very close watch. This is starting, if this turns early, then it's going to put Bermuda pretty much in its crosshairs. And right now, the models are calling for this to get uncomfortably close. This would definitely lead to watches and tropical storm warnings at this point. So we're keeping a very, very close watch on this. But right now, it's going to be difficult to avoid at least some type of indirect impacts for some populated landmass. So, taking a look here at the University of Wisconsin and their real-time update products, we do see a little bit of weakening potentially with the overall vorticity maximum, but its forward speed will help make up a little bit for that reduction in vorticity maximum. So maximum sustained winds will still definitely still remain in 40-45 miles an hour. So we do know that the HCCA, as we can see here, this is the consensus aid that the National Hurricane Center mentioned in that recent discussion. And as you can also tell that we had the consensus aid was way down here earlier today, and now it has rebounded back well away from the island chain. When we saw this morning, this was very concerning because that changes the angle at that point. And as you could see, it is, 4 degrees, 4 degrees west of where it was now with the consensus. So that's at least a good sign. Though we are looking at the consensus as a steady intensification through even day 7. The TVCN consensus, as you could see, has also flipped back, is a little bit further south in the first 24 to 30 hours, maybe even the first 48, but then catches back up, intensifies quite a bit, and it is able to end up further east of its most recent run. So that's good news. And as you can see, a considerable intensification rate, getting it up to even potentially a Category 4. Although it is good news for the folks in the Bahamas, the islands, and, like the northern leewards, Puerto Rico, potentially the east coast of the United States. Bermuda is located right there on that map. So, again, the folks in Bermuda, I'm starting to get quite concerned for you guys up there, especially if this potential, kind of trend, I guess, if you want to call that. It's not necessarily a trend. It was one swing down and one swing back. But if we're looking at that, you guys are really under the gun at this point, and are highly recommended to continue to monitor this system as we go forward. And any updates from the National Hurricane Center, check back at least once a day now. Taking a look at the H-Wharf, we're going to eye trends a little bit further to the south, much stronger, and then starts to pull out. As you can see, way up here, Category 3, Category 4. So, and it intensifies quicker, which causes that northern turn to occur prior to reaching the islands. HMON, again, trending a little bit further to the south, trending a little bit further to the west. But if you notice, there is a lot of variation here in the 24-hour period, right? And then potentially a decent amount in the 48-hour period. But by the time that we get out here towards the end, they're all in pretty good agreement with one another. So it is, it's responding to what we've seen with the high pressure to its north and it being a little bit weaker, feeling that low level flow just a little bit more, not the mid level, and then eventually coming out and kind of joining up with itself in its previous thoughts. Though it is a little bit weaker. So although it is from some of the previous runs, it is still weaker, being a Category 3. We check in on halves. Now, halves has been kind of a thorn in the side because, as you can see, it's been bouncing all over the place. The last couple runs really kind of kept it down very uncomfortably close to the islands here. And when we flip over to the intensity, you'll see why it was very uncomfortable. But as we could also note that this most recent run gives us enough distance away from the islands to where we should avoid really, really significant impacts. And the halves A model gets quite strong, Category 4, and does a quick intensification rate, what they're calling for, which I find that kind of hard to believe, but we'll see. I find that very, very hard to believe that within the next 12 hours that we are going to be looking at a middle of the road Category 2. I have a hard time believing that, folks. When we look at the satellite view right now, that's not going to verify. Halves B, this one was the one that was very scary this morning, as we could see, and yesterday, even after we got off the live. It was way, way south, bringing potentially even the eye wall southern portions of the eye wall in down here close to the islands. But it has since rebounded, and the reason for the rebound is a decent pace of intensification. Gets it up to, pops into Cat 4, maybe down due to an eye wall replacement cycle, and then continues to come back up as it is exiting and moving away from the islands. Now, what I have here is a snapshot of the sea surface temperatures, and this was from yesterday. Now, this is the 3-day blended, this is the snapshot. So I'm going with the snapshot just because it is a quick, like we're not worried about what happened the day before or anything like that. We're just taking the quick snapshot of current conditions. And this is what we're looking at right now, knowing our coordinates for our storm. We are at 17 degrees north and about 38 degrees west, so we're somewhere in this region here, give or take a little bit. Obviously, we've got 15-degree grid markers east and west and 10-degree grid markers from north to south. So somewhere in this potential region here is where our storm is. As you can see, as it continues to move off to the west, it is going to incur even warmer and warmer water temperatures, especially when we get past 45. And then again, once we get past 50, it's going to increase again. So as this continues to move further and further to the west, when it gets up here into the southwestern Atlantic, we're talking about some really, really warm water temperatures at that point. Rocket fuel. And, we don't want to talk about that. I'm just going to put an X on it. And the water temperatures out there, we don't want to discuss that. Not right now. And hopefully we don't see anything in the near future get over there. So now we're going to jump into Earth Null real quick. And there is a little bit of a feature that I do want to highlight here. And this was also discussed by Dr. Cowan at Tropical Tidbits in his afternoon video today. As you can see, we have potentially dual areas of vorticity, and this is at the surface. So this one is quote unquote Erin. This is a very little weak area of low pressure here with kind of a lobe that kind of comes out this way. Well, because these two are interconnected, it could pivot this one a little bit further this way while this one tries to pivot up this way, and this is going to die. All right, or they're just going to consolidate into one solid feature is most likely what's going to occur. This one is going to come down like this as this one rotates, tries to rotate up, and then it'll kind of rotate in like this, and then they'll consolidate and congeal into one solid feature. And that is also backed up if we look at the 800 millibar. It is a broad area of rotation here associated like this with Erin kind of anchored right here, prone and primed to potentially take a little bit more of a southerly track for the next few hours, as noted here by our circulations. Now, I'm going to zoom out. We're going to put our trusty green circle down. And we're going to zoom out and we're going to kind of reposition ourselves. So this way we can take a look at everything that's going on. And we're going to come up. We're going to start out and we're going to jump right to the 500 millibar level. And the reason that we're jumping to the 500 millibar level is because it shows pretty much everything we need. We have high pressure here. We have, this is old Invest 96L, but this didn't really do what we wanted. And this high pressure ridge here and this one have kind of connected. Now, if this storm happened to be sitting like right here, it may find that early path out. But the storm is back here and not up here, so it cannot take advantage of that, small break in the high. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to run this forward. And this is the GFS solution. We've come forward 24 hours at this point. We still have our high steering everything this way. All right, we've got our flow heading that way. We have a low pressure center here with our troughing feature here, and it looks like, if you could see, we're getting that break in the high right there. Now, obviously, we're still way back here. We're not up here. But we've also got our high pressure ridge here. Now, if I were to zoom out on this, I'm going to clear this, and we're going to zoom out just a little bit more because I want to show you what's going on up here into Canada. You see this feature right here? This is kind of helping to reinforce this, which is helping to keep this trough in place. Now, we're going to continue to run this forward, and we'll put our trusty green circle where Erin is located. 1, 2, 3. This is another 24 hours into the future, and as you can see, we still have our dual high pressure. We're 72 hours out now. Got one high here, one high here. We're starting to get that break in the high pressure ridges. Okay. We've got our low pressure way up here to the north, and as you can see, we've got that westerly or, easterly heading wind coming out of the west, flowing off of the United States mainland. All right, let's run this forward yet one more 24-hour lock. Now, please keep in mind, this is the GFS solution. This is where things get interesting because this is where a lot of the uncertainty takes place. As you can see, we still have the high pressure here. This is forecast a week. We've got a much stronger high here, and we've got another kind of high here that is forming this kind of thin ridge like this. All right, it actually comes down a little further here, but it's right in here where we're looking at this weakness starting to develop as to this begins to erode out. And as you can see, we have a little bit of shortwave energy and bringing a trough in, which should help knock this out with this approaching from the south. Now we'll be able to run this forward one more 24-hour period. And now you can very clearly see at this point in time where everything sets. We have our high pressure here. This ridge is dominant over the United States and the eastern part of the United States. We have our high pressure ridge out here. This is dominant over pretty much the central and the eastern parts of the Atlantic, with the weakness right here. Now, where this takes place, that remains to be seen. It's going to all depend upon the intensity of this storm and how far north is it. If it is, say, down here, say it's down here a little bit further, well, it's going to have to, as it's making its north, pull, it's going to end up going a little further west because it needs more time to get further north. So it's a lot, and it's also going to have to depend upon the weakness of or the strength of the storm, because if you notice here, we're at the 500 millibar level. If I come down, say, to the 850 millibar level, well, there is still the weakness there, but there is a little bit of wind that will potentially try to pull it a little further to the west. I'm not saying that this has no bearing on the state of Florida. I'm just saying that it could happen to drift it a little bit further to the west, which then increases the angle. It might save Bermuda, but it could get it uncomfortably close for the folks here in the Bahamas, and especially along the East Coast, and then potentially up into this area as well. So what we would like to see is for this to turn early Unfortunately, that puts Bermuda right in the bullseye. So that's kind of the breakdown of what all we're looking at. Now, if we compare that to what the models are saying, again, I've got some optimism for the folks in the United States, especially with the 12Z runs. If we take a look at the Euro legacy, this is not AI, this is just straight legacy Euro. And I will have to change my colors for this one. If we look, we have two distinct camps. Okay? We have camp number one, strong, early. If you look at where everything is, the majority of those populate from this cluster here. We have another camp that sits out a little further. Those populate from here. So where we're at when we cross 60 is going to be key. What is our latitude number? Now, as you could also see, that the Euro itself does not necessarily pull the islands out of harm's way. So it is something that we're going to have to continue to watch for the folks down there in the islands. But overall, the higher probability is that it should stay away. Okay, we don't have a lot even getting out here to threatening the East Coast. Now, regardless what happens, there will be massive swells and rip currents along the entire Atlantic facing beaches as this begins to pull north. So that's the United States, that's the Bahamas, getting down here to the the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, all Atlantic facing beaches will incur some potential for rip currents and large waves and just kind of unbecoming currents, potentially water undertows. That's the word that I was looking for. I was struggling. So the Euro AI has the same kind of thinking. The majority of the probabilities are here out into, around the Bermuda area. We still have a small camp of these getting out further to the west. But you can make that determination in the camps because there's a line right about here to where everything in this range heads up and becomes a part of this camp. It's the ones that get really, really weak and down here towards the islands that slide a little further to the west, go right up through the Bahamas, and then potentially come up and impact parts of the East Coast. So again, everything at about 60. We need to know where our latitude lines are. And if I would say if we're above 19 by the time we get to 60, we'd like to be above 20. But if we could be at least above 19 with some intensity, there's a very high chance that it is going to turn out well before it gets to the United States. But it's not a 0% chance just yet. Now, the GEFS, again, similar thinking, except the GEFS does not have 50 ensemble members. It only has 31. As you can see, some of these ones that get out a little bit further off this way are from the southern camp down here. Everything else, especially if it intensifies quickly and early, turns out and heads towards, unfortunately, Bermuda, which is right there. And this would make Bermuda on the front right quadrant, which would be even worse. So they would receive the highest wind speeds that you could possibly get if the eye wall were to come to it. Now, what I've got here is Google's DeepMind model. And as you can see, the Euro high res, the European ensembles, their first ensemble model for the Google DeepMind, and then the current ensemble model for Google DeepMind. Take a look, folks. You don't have a lot. You've got, 1, two, three, maybe, and they're all from the Euro ensemble that could potentially, maybe four, impact the United States. It's not a lot, folks. There's a lot of lines right here. And there is one. This particular ensemble member right there does bring it to a category 5. It's the only one, but it does. Oh, well, we got that one too. Oh, there's three of them. That's barely. That's Euro. This one's Euro, and that one is Euro as well. So, very, very, very low probability, 6% chance. But as far as the Euro is concerned, we could see this get extremely, extremely intense. So, something that we'll have to keep a monitor on. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to shut these tracks off. We'll turn our ensemble markers back on, and we'll run this just so everybody can kind of get an idea of the long range. I know that there's a whole bunch of people out there talking about, hey, look, it's the Euro ensembles. It could be doing this. It could be doing that. Folks, it's hurricane season. So, as you can see here, I'll pull up everything that we can get out of the basin. And we got to put our tracks back on. As you can see, there could be, something. If something gets out there and gets developed, it could run along the southwestern periphery of the high pressure. But again, it's hurricane season. Right now, we don't have anything out there. Looking at our dust model for the day, if we run this out, we can clearly see Erin kind of embedded within this dust. And then as it starts to pull northward, it's not really associated with the dust anymore. And then we get a great amount of dust that is going to be hanging out over the basin. We do see some swirls associated with it, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what goes on. I don't see any tight signatures like we've got like right here. I don't see any tight circulations. I see a lot of broad areas of spin for the tropics, but nothing on this model that would denote what we see here. All right, and next, our high pressures. I'm just going to quickly run this. We've got the Euro in the upper left, our European AI in the upper right, and our GFS in the lower left. And the reason that I'm showing this is that they are all three pretty much in a better agreement today. The Euro AI has shifted back to the east some, as you could see, and could potentially even combine with this low-level, cold core storm way up to the north, and that could get intense. As you can see, it really, really starts to bottom out here on the Euro. GFS not so much, but the Euro phases with it correctly. GFS doesn't. It's a little bit ahead of the game. And yep, there is one little spot out here into the main part of the tropical Atlantic at hour 240 on the Euro. So again, we can get through this. We should be okay. Now, if we remember within the forecaster's discussion that an upper level anticyclone is forecast to form over the system, and that's basically what this is. Here in about 60 hours, we do have an upper level anticyclone over the storm itself. And then once it gets north of the islands, and especially what the Euro's calling for, watch this, the Euro just really starts to deepen the pressures. But as it starts to approach and it starts to try to phase with this low pressure off to the north, watch what happens to this jet stream and this jet streak. It really explodes in wind speeds. All right, and we even get the same kind of feature here associated with the Google or the GFS as well. So I mean, this one with the Euro though, it really, really turns into a very, very powerful, not necessarily, could be potentially tropical, but not totally tropical at that point. But its pressures are very, 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 very low. I mean, we're talking about a big time storm system if this were to materialize into Newfoundland area. I hope we don't see that. Our daily MJO outlook update, as we could see, we really haven't had any movement in days. We'll even hit the refresh on it, and as we could see, again, we haven't had very much movement in 3 days. So we'll check back again tomorrow. The global tropics hazards outlook from the Climate Prediction Center was released this afternoon. This is a brand new graphic, hot off the press. As we can see here, I'm going to slide this all the way over to the corner because I just want that. This is for the week of August 20th through August the 26th. We do have development in the main development region with an anchored spot just west of the Cabo Verde Islands with a 40% chance of tropical cyclone development. And this would, kind of line up with what we've seen with the Euro there at the 240-hour timeline. And then for week 3, August 27th to September the 2nd, we've got this. It's 20% chance of tropical cyclone development, and it is in the area, as you can see, maybe a little bit of a bend. Not so much into the Gulf, not so much into the Caribbean. So things that we'll have to watch. And what makes this one interesting, we've got development for all 3 of the National Hurricane Center covered basins for August 20th through the 26th. So things could get kind of hot. And then as you can see with week 3, we're starting to get the big time development potential out here into the western portions of the Pacific as the next round of the MJO starts to work its way through. Okay, where we're at today, that was yesterday, and we are going to go today. Obviously, it is not far off from that one. Today is literally one line over like that. We are getting closer and closer to the climatological peak of hurricane season, folks. Please make sure that your preparations and your hurricane kits are in working order. Our development and origin points from 1851 to 2024, as you can see, we could get it anywhere. From August 11th through August the 20th, anywhere in the tropical, anywhere really in the Atlantic Ocean, we could see tropical cyclone development. And it even picks up more in frequency as we get to the final 10 days of August. Jumping out now to the eastern and central Pacific. And like I told you, Henriette was out there. There it is. It's out here. Little tiny thing dealing with this huge low pressure system here. As you can see here, this is starting to kind of impinge, and then you have dry stable air kind of starting to pinch it off there, and this is still pulling up like this, and its demise is soon. Damn zombie storm. So let's get the particulars on our on this month's zombie, or this week's zombie. As we can see, Henriette way out here into literally the middle of nowhere. I don't even think ships travel out here. They may, but if they do, they're kind of lost because, as you can see, have no idea where they're going unless they're going straight from Hawaii to Alaska. So, as we can see, we're thankfully not going to be dealing with any kind of tropical system towards Alaska. And the reason that we could say that with certainty is the spaghetti plots that I'll show you here in just a second. Taking a look at the satellite imagery, it is starting to kind of shear out some of that convective activity off to the south, and the center of circulation may become exposed here in the next few hours as it continues to make its way off to the north and in more increasing hostile conditions. Looking at the public advisory, we are currently at 34.1 north, 162.9 west, about 935 miles north-northwest of Honolulu, with a maximum sustained winds of 65 miles an hour, moving northwest at 18 miles an hour with a minimum central pressure of 999 millibars. Obviously, there are no coastal watches or warnings in effect, and you cannot affect land if you are hundreds and hundreds of miles, if not almost 1,000 miles away from any known landmass. So we have no hazards affecting land. Taking a look at the forecaster's discussion, we got 24 hours. So hopefully by this time tomorrow night, we are dealing with a post-tropical cyclone Henriette. And if it kind of keeps acting the way that it's going, yeah, I would say so, because it is starting to shed that convective activity off to the south. The spaghetti plots on that has it pulling up, and actually as it loses its intensity, pulls up and then kind of turns around, rotates around on itself, and then eventually ends up dissipating, not being absorbed by anything else. Jumping out to the Western Pacific, we have Typhoon Padul out here. This is approaching the island of Taiwan and has 85 knots. So as we could see, there will be some impacts here. It will be interesting to exactly how the track is influenced as it approaches, because of the mountainous terrain there on the island of Taiwan can sometimes manipulate the track and delay landfall and extend some of the conditions there, some of the inclement conditions, especially with the rain as it approaches and then kind of tries. It doesn't really get there and then kind of like fades to the north and then crosses over. Audio feedback. I don't know why, sir. I do not have anything that should be doing anything. I have not moved. I have not done anything other than just click on through. So the audio feedback, I honestly have no clue. And again, the weather database that is tied to our Facebook page here, if you come to the database and you click North America, it will give you all the countries out here that are still potentially in line for Erin as we go forward, and it's a great resource for the rest of the season. So I am going to check through the questions. When is it supposed to be near 60? That is going to be, let's get the track. That would be 60, would be sometime on late Friday, early Saturday with the current forecast track. This right here, Christy, is the 60 line. Right there. And then our 20 line is right there. We would always love to see the storm get on the north side of the 20 before it crosses 60. We never want to see a storm in this quadrant right here. And the only reason is innocent folks live there. That's it. It's the only reason. We don't want anybody to be impacted and affected by this one, especially with some of the hurricane-specific models of what we're calling for. Let's see. Yes, I am playing with the crayons. There, Jess. I certainly am. All right, everybody. That's about all I've got for this evening. I will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. We'll go over everything and take a look and see what changes we have, and see if we are starting to get that, continuous trend. And there we go. I'll zoom back over here. We're starting to get that flare up. Here it comes. Let me switch over to the infrared channel, and we'll show everybody that we're starting to fire right at the last couple frames. We're starting to fire a little bit of convection in and around the, I'd say kind of near the core, not on the core, but near it nonetheless. All right, everybody, you're very welcome. Betty, y'all have a wonderful evening, and we'll be with you again tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, here on YouTube and Facebook. So join us, and if you guys got any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out to us, let us know, and we will do the best to answer them in a timely manner. So have a great evening, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night.